All right, so far in chapter 6, we have talked about the importance of equilibrium because equilibrium determines the price and it's based off from where supply and demand are equal. We talked about when we're not at equilibrium and we have a surplus, which is above equilibrium, or when we have a shortage, when we're below equilibrium. But equilibrium is made up of supply and demand. So do you suppose they stay the same? You're smart. You said no, because we already know supply and demand actually move and they change. So as a result, hey, equilibrium is going to change as well. So in this video, we're going to talk about what happens when supply and demand move. So first, let's talk about demand. So I'm going to talk about demand, and we're going to start with when demand changes, and we're going to start with when demand shifts to the right. Now, I will preface this by telling you, I am going to draw a graph. And you should know by now, when I draw a graph, you should draw a graph. If you have colored pencils or extra different colored pens, you can do that. If you don't want to, you do not have to. So first off, we're going to start with our basic supply and demand curve. Now, notice I labeled everything. I labeled the price as the y-axis, quantity as the x-axis, supply curve is upward sloping, demand curve is downward sloping. You should label everything. The point where they intersect, that's my original price, that's my original quantity. That is going to be my equilibrium price, my equilibrium quantity. Now, what happens when there's a right shift? Well, if you remember what causes demand to shift, so think about this. What are the 6 factors that cause a change in demand? Income, taste, substitutes, complements, market size, and expectations. So if, for example, the income of people goes up, or if people just like this product better, or if the price of a substitute goes up, or the price of a complement goes down, or hey, there's more people in the area, or if they're expecting the price to go up in the future, all of those things will cause a right shift in demand. That's what a right shift in demand looks like. So notice I have it labeled D1. You could label it DR for demand right shift. But now we have a new equilibrium, because our new equilibrium is going to be where our new demand curve intersects our old supply curve. So right here, okay? So here's my equilibrium price. Here's my equilibrium quantity. So what happened to my price going from here to here? My price went up. And what happened to my quantity going from here to here? My quantity goes up. Anytime there is a right shift in demand, both price and quantity will increase. Make sure you have that drawn and correctly. If you need to, pause the video here. Okay, what about if the demand curve shifts to the left? All right, so changes in demand, you don't have to write that again because that's just a reminder. Left shift. Okay, left shift in demand. We're gonna, again, start with a graph. So notice, still starting with a graph now. Even though we're only talking about a demand change, I'm still drawing supply and demand now. So anytime we talk about a change now, we're always going to be starting off with that basic X, supply and demand. So I label my axes, I label my supply curve, label my demand curve. Okay, here's my original price, here's my original quantity. And now something happens going to shift our demand curve to the left. So maybe people's income drops. Maybe people just don't like this product. Maybe the price of a substitute goes down. Maybe the price of complement goes up. Maybe there's just less people in the area. Or maybe people are expecting a sale in the future. Either way, left shift in demand. So here's my left shift. And now I have a new equilibrium. So my new equilibrium is going to be where my new demand curve intersects my old supply curve. So here. So here's my new price. Notice I label it P1. And here's my new quantity, Q1. So what happened to my price going from P0 to P1? Price went down. What happened to my quantity going from Q0 to Q1? Quantity went down. Anytime there is a left shift in demand, the equilibrium price and quantity both decrease. Now notice that I'm talking about price and quantity. You cannot tell me that what happens to equilibrium. You can't just say equilibrium goes down. You can't do that because that's incomplete. Equilibrium has two parts. You have to talk about price and quantity. Okay, so this was when demand shifts. All right, well, we also know that, yes, you guessed it, supply also shifts. So, changes in supply. All right, let's start with a right shift in supply. All right, again, I'm going to draw the graph. So, starting with the graph, I'm labeling my axes. Here's my price, here's my quantity. I'm labeling my lines, supply curve, demand curve. And I'm going to put in my original equilibrium prices here. Here's my original equilibrium quantity. And now I'm ready for my shift. So bare minimum, whenever you're drawing a graph now, you have to put supply and demand on now. Okay, so now right shift in supply. All right, so quick review. What causes a change in supply? Think about it. What are those 6 factors? You got them? So 6 factors that cause a change in supply. Cost of inputs, productivity, technology, government action, expectations, and number of sellers or number of producers. So if we're going to cause a right shift in supply, remember, is going to be when maybe the price of the resources goes down, maybe the workers are more productive because, hey, maybe they have a better work environment, maybe they have a new piece of technology that works better, maybe government's going to tax them less or give them more subsidies, or hey, give them less regulations. Maybe the producers are expecting the price of this product to go down in the future, or the price of their resources to go up in the future, or maybe there's just more sellers. Either way, right shift in supply. That's what our right shift looks like, remember? So, right shift in supply. Now again, we have to find our new equilibrium. Our new equilibrium is where our new supply curve intersects our old demand curve. So right here. So here's my equilibrium price. Here's my equilibrium quantity. So what happened to my price? Going from P0 to P1. Price went down. What happened to my quantity? Going from Q0 to Q1. Quantity went up. Anytime there is a right shift in supply, the equilibrium price is going to decrease and the quantity is going to increase. This is the best possible scenario for consumers. Think about it. It's cheaper and there's more of them out there. That's the best possible scenario and everybody loves this. Again, you cannot just tell me equilibrium goes up or equilibrium goes down because that doesn't tell me the whole story. You have to tell me what happened to price, what happened to quantity. Okay, we have one more option that we have to look at. Obviously, left shift in supply. Again, you don't have to write that E part again. That's just a reminder we're still talking about changes in supply. So left shift in supply. So here's my original graph. So you're starting with this. Again, label axes, label lines. Supply is upward sloping, demand is downward sloping. You already know this. And then our equilibrium. So our equilibrium is here. So here's original price. Here's our original quantity. That's the basic setup. Okay, so now we have a left shift in supply. So what causes a left shift in supply? Well, maybe the price of inputs goes up. Maybe workers are less productive because maybe their work environment is stinky. Maybe the technology breaks down. Maybe the government's taxing them more. The producer has to pay more in taxes. Or they're taking back, they're giving them less subsidies. Or they're having more regulations, more rules to follow. Or maybe this producer thinks that the price of their product is going to go up in the future. Or the price of the resource is going to go down in the future. Or maybe there's just less sellers. Either way, left shift in supply. That's what it's going to look like. And we have a new equilibrium. So where our new supply curve intersects our old demand curve. So right here, so here's my new equilibrium price. Here's my new equilibrium quantity. Okay, what happened to my price? Look at this, going from P0 to P1, my price went up. What happened to my quantity? Going from Q0 to Q1, my quantity went down. So anytime there's a left shift in supply, equilibrium price increases and the quantity decreases. This is the worst possible scenario for consumers. Not only are there less products available to consumers, but they also cost more. That sucks. All right. That's what happens when supply and demand move and what happens to equilibrium. So now let's give it a shot and some practice. In the next video, you guys are going to go back to that ruler graph one last time and look at some examples. All right, that's it for now. Let me know if you have any questions.